everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make this really beautiful, very simple crochet scarf. If this is your first time visiting the Blossom Crochet channel, then do just take a moment now to subscribe so that you can keep up to date with all of my tutorials and videos and things. But my name is Rebecca and this beautiful scarf is so easy and simple. It is a one row repeat, which is always really nice, and it's one of those that's quite mindless, so once you get going you don't really need to think about it and you can just crack on with it while you're listening to your music or watching the TV. I'm just going to give you a little close up there, so I'm hoping you can see those beautiful stitches. So it's a variation on a cluster stitch and chain spaces and things, which is what gives it that lovely diagonal sort of lopsided effect. So the yarn that I used for the finished scarf that you can see there is the James C. Brett Northern Lights, which is a DK yarn, and this one is shade NL08, and there are 450 meters in this, and I've used most of it. I've got just this little bit here left, so I could have added a few more rows, but I wasn't sure how much I was going to need for the fringe and things, so yeah, I've got this little bit left over, which is what I'm going to do the tutorial with. So yeah, it's the Northern Lights yarn. Now this is a really long scarf. I don't know about you, but I like to have a slightly narrower scarf and have it really long so that I can wrap it around my neck a few times. So this scarf is long enough to go around my neck twice and also then fold across to tuck inside a jacket. So I'll leave the exact length in the description box, but I haven't measured it yet, so I will do that and then leave it in the description. And then you can finish your project off with whatever you like, but I've just done some really simple tassels or fringe, and I just wanted to keep it pretty simple, but it just finishes it off nicely. So there we go, another little look at these stitches. So for the project I used a 5mm hook. It only recommends a 4mm for that particular yarn, but I wanted to do a bigger hook so that it would have a slightly better drape at the end. I didn't want it to be too stiff. So for my exact scarf I did a chain of 30 plus 4, but you can amend that to make your scarf wider if you want to. You just need to do a multiple of 6 plus 4. So 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So like I say, if you just complete your foundation chain, I'll be doing 30 plus 4, but as I say, if you wanted it wider, just a multiple of 6 plus 4 at the end. Okay, so I've completed my foundation chain and I've done my additional 4 stitches. We're going to jump straight into a cluster stitch now. So you're going to be working in the 7th chain from the hook. So you're going to count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then into your 7th you're going to start your cluster. So you'll yarn over, insert into that 7th stitch, yarn over and pull up, and you'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops and then stop, and you're going to do that 2 more times. So yarn over, insert back into that same chain, yarn over and pull up. You'll have 4 loops this time. Yarn over, pull through the first 2, and then once more yarn over, back into the same chain, yarn over and pull up. You'll have 5 loops, yarn over and pull through the first 2. So you should now be left with 4 loops on your hook. So you want to yarn over and pull through all of those loops and chain 1. Now that is your beginning cluster stitch. So that chain 1 counts as part of your cluster. Now, one thing that you will need to remember throughout the entirety of the project is that the first cluster that you do on every single row will only consist of 3 stitches, but all of the others along the row will have 4. So you now want to chain 2 and then back into that same chain again. You're going to do a treble crochet. So please remember, in the US this is your double crochet. So yarn over, back into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up. You'll have your 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is your first set of stitches. So we're going to move on now. We're going to skip 5 chains. So we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and into the 6th chain you'll do your next cluster. So yarn over, insert into that 6th chain along, yarn over and pull up. It can be a bit fiddly working this. And then yarn over and pull through the first 2 stitches. And remember, we're doing 4 into this chain. So yarn over, back in the same chain, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, that's 2, and again yarn over, insert and yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, that's 3, and 1 more, yarn over, pull through 2, and then again you'll yarn over and pull through all of those stitches and do a chain 1 to complete your cluster stitch. Chain 2, and then back into that same chain you're going to put 1 more treble crochet. Yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And then again you'll skip 5 and do the same into the 6th stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then into your 6th you will go straight into your cluster stitch. So remember, it's only the very first one of a round that only has 3 stitches. The rest of them have 4 in the cluster. Yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, that's 2, three, and 4, and then yarn over, pull through all the loops and chain 1 to complete your cluster, chain 2, and then a treble back into that chain that you've worked all those other stitches. So you're going to carry that on now. You're going to do your cluster, which consists of 4 stitches, and then your chain 1, which always finishes your cluster, chain 2, and 1 treble back, all into the same chain space, skip 5 chains and repeat. So if you want to complete that all the way along, and I will meet you as you get back towards the end. So I've completed my final set of stitches, and then I'm going to finish the round with 1 treble into that very last chain. So you're going to skip those couple of chains and then do 1 treble into your very final chain, and that is how we should be looking so far. If you've followed the dimensions for the scarf, then you will have 5 sets of clusters. So then we're going to turn your work and then insert your hook into that very first stitch, exactly where your tail end is coming from. You'll insert your hook, yarn over and pull up, and you'll have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through 2, and you can see now this stitch has got 2 vertical sections to it. You want to insert your hook behind that one and yarn over and pull up again, and yarn over, pull through 2, and that just gives you a treble height stitch but without having to do the chain or the leaving any gaps or anything like that. If you wish, you may want to pop a stitch marker into the top of this stitch just to help with your edges, but edges on this one are pretty simple. Okay, so from now on we're going to be working in the chain spaces that were created in the previous row. So you can see here we've got your treble and you've got your cluster stitch, so it's going to go in between those into this chain space. So you'll go straight into your cluster, but remember this first cluster on every row only consists of 3 stitches, not 4. So yarn over and pull through 2, that's 1, 2, and 3, and then yarn over, pull through them all, chain 1 to complete your cluster, chain 2, and then back into that same chain space you're going to do your treble. You're then going to skip across to your next chain 2 space, so you'll be skipping across the cluster and the next treble and working into your next chain space, and now you're back to doing your 4 treble clusters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through them all, chain 1, chain 2, and then back into that chain space you'll do 1 treble. So just do 1 more. So you're then going to skip across to your next chain space, so you'll skip the cluster and the treble and straight into your next treble cluster. 2, 3, 4, yarn over and pull through them all, and you'll chain 1, chain 2, and treble back into that space. And you'll continue that all the way along, and I will meet you as you get to the end. But I've obviously only got 1 left here, so I've got my final chain space, so I've got my cluster to skip and my treble. I'll complete my final treble cluster, 2, 3, 4, chain 1, chain 2, and then my final treble back into that chain space. And then you've got your final cluster at the end of this row, and then you've got your chains that we skipped at the beginning. So if you can see here, we've got quite a long stitch just there, which is the top of the cluster, so it sits just on the top of that cluster, and you want to work into the chain next to it. So you're going to put 1 treble into the chain just after the top of your cluster stitch. So that is how you should be looking after your first couple of rows. I'll do 1 more row with you now, but obviously this is the row that you just repeat over and over. So you'll turn, insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through both, and then go behind the vertical part of your stitch, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through both, and then you're ready to work straight into your first chain 2 space between your treble and your clusters. And your first stitch is always only 3 trebles in this cluster, 2 and 3, chain 1 for your cluster, chain 2, and then your treble back into that chain space. And then again, now you're ready to work into your next chain space, and you'll be back to doing your 4 treble clusters, 2, 3, 4, chain 1, and then your chain 2, and your treble. And then again, you'll work that all the way along until you get to the end. Always remember to do your final treble in the space as well. So I'll just work this last group of stitches and then just reiterate to you exactly where your final stitch of the row will need to go. Okay, so again, you'll skip your final cluster and you've got that longer stitch here at the top of your cluster, you can see there, and then you've got your smaller stitch next to it, which is the top of that starting stitch that we did. So you'll yarn over, skip the top of your cluster and work into the top of the next stitch along with your treble. And that is it. That is literally the row that you will repeat over and over. Let me just bring back my finished scarf. So you can see it looks really beautiful in this yarn because the white flecks, I think, just give it this added little bit of coziness and rusticness, which I really like. And I just think it works really well with the stitch pattern because you don't get that much stitch definition with this particular yarn. So it needed to be something simple but quite lacy, and I think it just works really beautifully with this cluster stitch. I really like how it is turned out and I hope you do too. And obviously I just finished mine, as I said, with some really simple fringe, and I will leave a link to the tutorial for that in my description box. I've got 7 tassels, so I've got 1 in the centre and then 3 either side because I'm a thing for symmetry. So I've got 7 on each end of my scarf. So that is it for this beautiful cozy cluster stitch video. I really hope that you enjoy making it, and do remember to tag me on Instagram if you make anything from my videos, because I really do love to see and to share as well. But that is it, and I will see you for another video really soon. Bye for now.